Oh, the 5Ks that day, okay.
So. That's right. I was just trying to find a place to start. That's all you and Don.
Got it, new challenge. You wait for me to spot. I wrote there, like, that.
You're just making sure I was here to say. Just here, you're just checking to see, you're just checking to make sure I was here. Yeah, that's right. Well, you. Yeah. You answer your cell phone and ask, are you?
I'm a Oh.
It's easy on some. Yeah.
Really far away.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's very odd.
I'm like.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can't.
Okay, good.
We're just waiting for Commissioner Hagan. Cynthia. She'll be here in a minute.
Okay, sounds good.
Based on what I saw, the park commission, I saw walked and all.
I got it.
It's weird. Not in the little. You're gonna drop down. But it didn't bother.
Alright. I'll wait for me.
Don't worry, we're not waiting for you.
You got started.
No, we waited.
Who you gonna-
Okay, I'm ready to go. I don't. So, let's get it going.
All right. We'll call this special meeting of the county commission for July 30th. To order. All commissioners are present either in the room or by Zoom. And Ms. Nelson, where should we start?
So on your desk, I put down a levy calculation sheet. This is where we're at after our 3 meetings. We're at 33,189,312. Yeah, estimated mills is 89,37. Although the mills are listed there, they're an estimated mill. It's the dollars that you levy and budget in. There are no additional positions and no salary increases in this amount yet. That's for you to decide, today if possible. Since our last meeting, Evelyn removed $8,000 from the IT budget. And and that is reflected in this levy sheet that I gave you. The preliminary budget must be approved by August 10th. And once approved, the budget cannot be increased before the final budget. The preliminary budget amount will be included in the estimated tax statements and budget hearing notice that is to be mailed by August 31st each year. Elected officials, sheriffs, state's attorney, and commission only receive a pay increase if there is a COLA given. The Employees Association asked for a step increase for qualified employees and a 3% COLA. They also asked for additional wellness hours and increasing vacation hours after 18 years of employment. Health insurance has been increased 10%. Because it's unknown at this time what's going to happen for next year, and that is the standard of what we usually do is 10%. There are 2.2 mills remaining in the 10 mills for capital project levy that we're allowed by law that can be used for the sheriff's relocation. We could include additional mills in 2025. That would increase the mills here, because we haven't done that yet. Or we could use cash for next year and the levy after we know the location where the sheriff's going to be. We currently have $1 million in capital improvements for 2025. And we have almost $1.2 million in requests. I have given you a copy of all the capital improvement requests. So that's on your desk. The ones highlighted in yellow are the ones that you've already approved in 2024 that go for multiple years. And so those you really can't change, but the ones that aren't highlighted have not been approved yet. So if there's anything on there you think we don't need, you could eliminate it, or you could increase our capital improvements budget. And if you did that, that changes the amount of mills we levy, or if it's a smaller amount, we could use cash to increase that capital improvement. And Gracie is here to present new grant opportunities for the commission that we require matching funds for 2025. And Bill is here and he would like to propose an option for the ongoing update currently included in capital improvements for $75,000 for 10 years. And then Robin Zane has some information she would like to share with you regarding the Youth Assessment Center. So we could hear from Gracie and Bill at this point.
Sure. Gracie, let's go first.
Absolutely.
Chair Angan, members of the commission. So apologies that we didn't get this to you sooner. Actually, one of these just popped up as an opportunity in the past few weeks. And then the others are projects that we had looked at or applied for in the past that I just wanted to bring to the commission's attention again. I don't know if they will proceed forward or if we want to apply for something, but I want to make sure that you're aware of the options that are there. So the first one is the North Dakota Energy Conservation Grant. And so Bill and I have been talking with a company that's been doing some consulting on public buildings around the state. There are dollars available up to $100,000 from the state for each public building to do energy saving retrofits in the building. So what we would be looking at here with the county office building, the courthouse, and the correctional center would be changing out lights to provide energy savings and cost savings. A requirement of this program is that you are able to show that within 10 years, you'll have the money that you invested in the lights paid back in terms of savings on energy costs. And so right now, the consultant that we are working with at no cost to the county is putting together what the cost would be for each building to do that retrofitting. And when I was speaking with them, they said that they haven't had any buildings that have needed to go over the $100,000 that the state is willing to match, which would mean if, let's say, the courthouse, the county office building, and the correctional center all maxed out, that would be about $300,000 to the county and then $300,000 from the state for each, but that's on the very high end. And then that would all be money that the commission, the county would make back over a 10-year time period if the project were to be approved. Those are awarded on a rolling basis. And so I'm not sure how long the program will last, but they seem very assured that as long as we could prove that we would be paid back within the period, that the county would get those dollars and be able to do those projects. So that's something to consider. The second is one that we've applied for and gotten in the past, the court facilities improvement grant. You will remember that was used for the security entrance in the courthouse. And we had to take out of that original project, the voice enunciation system that was supposed to go throughout the building, because the cost of that were so much higher than the original quote, just due to so much business happening in that area and lack of contractors. And so we haven't announced this program again, but the applications are typically due December 31st. It's 25% match of the total project cost. And the commission indicated a willingness to revisit and do that voice enunciation system, which was left off beforehand. It was left off because it was about $350,000 for that piece alone. And we felt that, Bill felt too, that if we were to reach out to contractors in advance and give them a lot of lead time on it, that we could get a much better price. So Bill has reached out again just to see if we can get better quotes. Haven't heard anything back at this point. But again, something to keep in mind, if that original price of $350,000 was to stand, 25% of that at the county cost would be $87,500, but you're not guaranteed to be awarded that one. It is limited funds, and that would be a pretty big project. And then the last program, actually, Commissioner Ross shared this with me, and it's something that we've looked at in the past, but the current cycle of grant dollars has opened, and that's a whole historic preservation fund grant. And that's towards money to the preservation, restoration, and rehabilitation of cultural resources listed on the National Register of Historical Places. There's only $150,000 available statewide. And so I think typically they award smaller projects, and that has to be a 50% match, but that would be something that I think the commission could consider on any fairground projects with the grandstands and any potential rehabilitation that needs to go there. It cannot go towards any projects that have already started, but funds could go towards new projects. And any sort of application for that would be due October 2nd, 2024. But that is a project or a grant that I'm pretty sure is every year, barring any unforeseen circumstances, those funds are usually available. And so those would be the three main ones that we want to keep an eye on, and that the commission may wish for us to pursue. And I think that if you were looking at those projects, and wanted to pursue them, I think a fair estimate would be around the 300,000 to 400,000 range, just depending on what you do or do not decide to pursue. And that would again only be costs if we were actually awarded the grants. And so just something to consider. There's nothing to say that we need to pursue these grants, but the opportunity is there for some free money from state programs. Any questions?
Questions? No questions at all. What amount are you saying that if we were to put this in the temporary budget, would that be the $300,000 range?
Yeah, I would say so. Again, I'm not sure what the prices are going to come back on the retrofitting. I think that one, giving a personal opinion, would be the best bang for the county's buck in terms of that payback period on energy cost savings. And so that would probably be a max of around that 200,000, and it might even be a lot cheaper depending on, the courthouse is smaller, the correctional center is newer. So I think that would be a safe bet.
Okay. Other questions? Commissioner Peach?
No, I don't have any at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Torgren, Mr. Lawson, anybody? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Bill, you next?
Yeah.
few things to hand out to you for this topic. That's the second one too. Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity to present this information. The first of this deals with of the $75,000 annually that I've been working on, packing away on the cob. We did first floor this year, you approved that capital improvements. We converted everything from N2 trunk to FC bus interface on our main systems user interface platform. The costs per floor in here, 75,000, literally budgeted for that for first floor. I hit 73 and some change on that is what we paid out on that for one floor. Take that times 7 here, take that probably times 2 in the courthouse. Probably times 3 in the jail. My 10-year hope to get it done progressively annually. Will probably take a little longer than that with a little more total dollar amount, that's 750 originally speculatively figured. As of September 1 this year, Johnson Controls, because of our aging N2 infrastructure that they have not only around Grand Forks, but around the world, and it being engineered obsolete now, they have come out with a PSA, basically a buyback program. Is what you could call it, or a loan program in a sense, where the total installed program and turnkey operation for it has a value for the county right now, today cash value at $1,030,300. Their PSA is a 5-year payback on a monthly payment program where we would pay out $1,243,024.20 at $20,717.07 monthly. In a 5-year period, we'd pay that out. They would start work immediately upon award of the PSA being signed by the commission, accepted. We'd have the work done within an 18-month window rather than 10 to 12 years as what would be, as I keep pecking away at it one floor at a time here in this building, and partially through the courthouse, partially through the jail at a time. The packet goes through breaking down the different sensors, packaging, transducers, Hoffman boxes, terminal strips, everything that it goes through for the jail, for the courthouse, for the county office building, which gets them to their grand total on it. If it's something worth considering, that's up to you as the commission, whether, how do we pay for it? It's $1 million, right? Do we go into a PSA where if I was awarded 75,000 for 2025 towards second floor of this building, obviously that 20,000 monthly, I wouldn't need that 70,000 anymore. So a portion of that would go, that 75,000 would go towards that in a budget increase for this to happen if we went into a PSA with them to do, where they would do everything in the next 18 months, it would be done, and we'd just be paying on it for 5 years. The difference in between that, what actual cash value at just over $1 million or $1,243,000. Essentially, what we're paying them is interest on the loan. That's basically what it boils down to. Yeah, it's information for you to make that decision on whether I keep moving forward annually for the next 10 to 12 years. We do it all at once, pay for it all, or go into a PSA at 5 years. That's the three options that are presented that way. N2 trunk, very shortly will be, the only thing that we'll have will be what components are available in these parts on the interweb, if you will. We do have a small cache now of used parts. I know Commissioner Rusted has asked me, what do we have for used parts? I had nothing before we did first floor. Now we have a small cache of used parts from first floor that we could use in different areas, providing the sizing is applicable and stuff. So I'm not necessarily dead in the water and failure of a controller or a interface module within the buildings, but that cache of used parts only lasts so long as well. And as our aging technology moves farther away from what's currently supported, how valuable is their support to us when they're no longer supporting that platform anymore as well. So that's the three options to pose: is budget annually for 10 to 12 years. Accept this as a project to move forward at cash value, or go into a PSA. The PSA is is fairly lucrative option in retrospect, in the sense that every year that goes on, 75,000 will continue to go less and less. Cost of product isn't going to get cheaper, it's going to be, labor gets more expensive, components get more expensive. So 5 years from now, $75,000 is going to be less than what it does today on this same project. So how much of it can I do annually, and how much more expensive does it get 10 to 12 years from down the road? I can't forecast that, nobody really can. But it's what we have for an operating system of the building. It's engineered into all of our buildings. Those are the three options that I have on that. I do have, I'll use a Nick Western. I do have one other tidbit that I handed you the second packet out, completely separate from this, but very integral to sheriff's office planning. As Commissioner Rusted kind of said, well, let's get the ball rolling on this, figure out where we're at on the fire panel in the courthouse. It does not communicate with the outside world. It's an antique. It was last updated in 1984. It was the last time it had hardware software integration on it. It currently cannot and does not communicate with the outside world. I can buy a DAC card to put into that panel to get it to communicate with the outside world when Julie moves out of that building. Because right now there are monitoring for the courthouse for that building. When they're gone, we have to have monitoring, being it's a sprinkled building. We have to have communication with the outside world for that to work. That card is not budgeted this year nor next year, because I didn't have those numbers until just recently in the last week. The DAC card installed and programmed is right at $7,000. The price on that is $69.34.38. Then we have to get IT installation of a network cable connection, an emergency line, dedicated phone line service on that to that panel, and then a communication device to the switch, because we're using everyone's using all smart switches, which are cloud managed switches. That panel can't communicate to that smart switch. It has to be the communication between it has to be dumped down for that DAC card in order for it to communicate to the outside world over the phone lines. That's a little bit of software, hardware that has to be done on the IT side. That's 7,000 for the DAC card programming, another 3,500 roughly on our end to get it functional. After that's installed, then we go into a PSA for monitoring, which is about $480 a month, or just shy of $6,000 a year. So that's something that at some point in time, I need to incorporate this expense into budgeting and before they're gone out of the building.
Commissioner Weston, you have a question?
Yeah, Bill, is it still necessary to do the panel upgrades if we shut the building and put a fire break between the two properties?
The panel where it's located at communicates to the courthouse and it's attached to the courthouse, and the sprinkler system is common tied together from the water source in the basement. I don't know how the fire department would handle that on the shuttering aspect of it, because the water source and metering, as well as the fire panel, still comes from that back address unless we completely change that infrastructure into the courthouse side into the mechanical room. I can't necessarily answer that with any accuracy or authority right now without doing some more like work on that part of it.
Right, I'm just kind of thinking on the fly, because, you know, like I said, in my mind, if we put a fire break on the, I guess you'd call it the unused side of the panel. Maybe we could even leave the sprinklers active and then, not necessarily have to go through those upgrades for what's largely gonna be vacant property at some point, you know, and then maybe just, because obviously that card you're referencing, that's a short-term fix.
Eventually you gotta replace the panel.
Right,
It's
so
gotta be done.
then you'd probably relocate it inside the courthouse,
It would be in the mechanical room once it's relocated.
and then that building could almost be then at that point, you know, completely offline, once that came past, but I guess I'm more just kind of thinking out loud than I'm asking you anything.
Yeah, short answer right now, although $11,000 is still $11,000, it's a small price to make what we have work. I guess this, how long will it take to make a decision on shuttering or demoing that building or what? It could be. It's been standing for 18 years since the jail moved and it's still there standing vacant. How much longer is it gonna stand vacant until a decision's made on demoing it, on doing something with it? I'm not trying to speak facetiously, I'm just saying that there's gonna be some time that we need to buy. That's $11,000 roughly would buy us some time.
Does that include IT costs and the running of the cable and all that?
Yeah, 7,000 for the DAC and programming. Roughly 3,500 on the IT side for getting dedicated communication to that panel then. And then I would need to augment a PSA agreement in that $5,000, $6,000 range per year.
I'm kind of surprised they let us limp it along this long. With just,
With in-house monitoring.
yeah, I mean, it seems like they kind of nudge and winked us, and yeah, so we probably don't want to horse around too much longer.
So this was totally separate from the PSA,
Right.
I didn't want to mix the two together, but I thought, well, we're at budget, none of this has been budgeted. This also is going to be reflected probably sometime in the 2025 year as Judy is moving out there, we have to have something in place.
Okay, thanks.
That's all I had.
Questions to Mr. Beach? Probably not.
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
So what are everybody's thoughts on his proposal? On the retrofit, how should we approach that?
I've been on the side of PSA agreements, both the. I guess we'll call it buyer and seller side in the past with JCI as I worked for years. I mean, I would probably defer to Bill, because there is buildings that he takes care of, but I mean, it seemed like that was your preferred method, if I was reading between the lines.
I think even over time. With paying that PSA out, I think. Realistically, looking at it realistically, the little bit more we pay in essentially in interest and having them do it now. As opposed to 10 to 12 years down the road. I think we at least be at a balance zero, if not a slight cost savings over time, because like I say, as time goes on. That $75,000 a year becomes less valuable. I'm gonna get less work done. 5 years from now or 10 years from now, as I would today. And the current pricing today is going to get more work done than that this same dollar amount 10 years from now won't be as awful as fun. But the old adage is, when's the cheapest time to do something?
Yeah.
Right now. Tomorrow it'll be more money.
Wish we had more of it.
So how would that fit into our budget now?
So, you have
Don't you vote?
options.
Okay,
You could increase your capital improvements levy for both the request made by Gracie and Bill. Or you could use cash to increase your capital improvements budget. Right now, it's at $1 million. Bill needs another 185,000 plus 196. And Gracie needs between $300,000 and $400,000.
Depending on if we get the all of them.
Right, so you want to budget for all of
Yeah.
them, you're going to, or you don't?
I'm just saying
That's the
would be
question, and do you want to levy or use cash?
I think the cash, we've got some cash that we could use to do that, I believe.
Yes, I would feel comfortable using about 1.5, 1.6. Using maybe $1 million for the sheriff relocations for 2025. Before we know what we're going to be doing with the sheriff. And I don't know if $1 million is the right figure for that. Or not. What is the figure? What should the figure be? 900,000? Is 900,000 enough?
For the, you mean for the sheriff? Yeah,
For the
we just
sheriff.
don't know yet.
We don't know. So what number should it be? So, I made that spreadsheet, that tool for you guys to use. I do have it up on the screen here, right at the top is the beginning, where we're at right now. So that levy sheet that I gave you, that legal side sheet of paper, mine is missing.
One,
Oh, here it is. Yeah, this one. So general fund is at 44.17 mils. That's what this sheet says. That's what my worksheet is. So the dollars is 17,407,436. Then I've got all these items that would affect the general fund, starting with 10 correctional center officers. And then going down to the steps and the COLAs. And then I've adding an amount for in addition to the capital improvements fund. Let's say you wanna increase it, we're already over 200,000. The requests, so do you see any requests there that you're like, oh, we can put that up? You have $130,000 on your bill. That is for the Johnson Control BAFC/BUS, is that anything you're talking
That
about
would
now?
be, that would also not be needed if we went to this, yes.
Ah, well, you didn't tell me that, you said it's 85, well, there's.
I'd like to hear that.
Yes, so really you only need 60,000.
Okay.
You didn't see that,
So that could come off 130 off that already, so we're very close to what we had budgeted and.
Well played.
I think the 130 was, I was gonna try and do 2 floors if I could do that, and that's where I would get. basically 75. I think I can get a little more bang for my buck if I have to finish the floor, so rather than 75.
But you had 75 plus you had the 130.
Yeah.
Okay,
You had.
if I have the money available, I'll then use it.
It's on, maybe. But anyway,
So,
so what?
what about that 75? What is that 75,000 in the, on that list?
Well, that was what we already offset the
That's what-
260, you need 185, but really you don't need 185, you need 55,
Right,
because.
So if we move forward with that, the only thing is you go into a PSA for 60 months, I can fund that. It's extended beyond 1 year of funding that we have to
Right.
look at. This is contractual for 60 months.
So, looking at the capital improvements budget, and if you add 500,000 more, that. And into that there, and then your X over here. So now we're at 44.17, and you keep the X there, and now you're at 45.84. If you added 500,000. Now, if you offset that with cash instead, that isn't a cost. That does not change the budget. Another thing is with the, I'll take that X out, we're back to 44.17. The maximum amount we can do in the capital construction or capital projects levy is 10 mils. We're at 7.78 mils.
I see that.
And so there's 2.22 mils that you could do. You could do that this year. But you would increase if you put in 2.2 mils due to. So now you have increased your overall levy. Oh, I have to put action. That's what I think. So now you increased your overall levy to 91.59 mils, and you can also see what effect that has on the taxpayer. By doing that. But that, I would be okay with using $1 million of cash and not levying in 2024 and waiting to see.
That's it for me.
Yeah, I gotta use cash. I'd rather use the cash that we have.
Yeah.
So,
I would agree.
do you want, okay, so we'll increase capital improvements, but use cash to do so. 500,000, 600,000, 20,000. You know, I was thinking that was the 5 range.
Is that with these items that are this 130 and the 75 that's in here already taken out?
Right, and then with Gracie's and Bill's items. And then you have other things to think about, the positions. So I redid this spreadsheet for months too, so if you want to change the months, originally we were talking about 10. If you wanted to add 10 correctional center officers for 10 months. You know, it's 2.44 mils, but if you change that to 8 months. Someone had requested that. Now it's 1.95 mils. So you could just change it to whatever months, or you say, no, it's gonna be the whole year. If you did that, cost would be 2.93 mils. Or $1.1 million. So, any thoughts about positions?
Well, before we get into those discussions, should we all know if we're about from the assessment center?
Sure.
We're gonna get all these back together.
Do you have the video?
I do.
Okay, we'll start with the video just to kind of give you guys a understanding of the difference between detention and attendant care.
This video was developed to provide information on federal and state standards for the handling of juveniles conducted by law enforcement.
The handling of youth by law enforcement and correctional officers is a source of high liability for local government. With cooperative efforts of state and county officials, much has been accomplished since that time to create a fair, consistent, and effective juvenile justice system. North Dakota's participation in the federal Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act helped to shape the way juveniles are handled in the process. The JJDP Act lays out four core provisions for the handling of youth. Those who are classified as status offenders or non-offenders cannot be held in secure facilities. Youth should not be held in adult facilities. Those youth who are brought into an adult facility for process must be kept from sight and sound separate from adult offenders. And states need to address the disproportionate contact of minority in the criminal justice system. In addition, the North Dakota Uniform Juvenile Court Act is quite clear. Law enforcement and correctional officers must preserve a juvenile's constitutional right to supervision in a humane and least restrictive setting. North Dakota's participation in the JJDP Act led to the creation of a reimbursement program for local government called Attendant Care. Attendant Care provides local government with funding for non-secure supervision of youth picked up by law enforcement. It is designed to provide that supervision when a parent or responsible adult is not immediately available.
Attendant care sites are available throughout the state. County sheriffs or private agencies working on their behalf operate these sites. Most of these non-secure supervision sites are in urban areas, but some rural sites are available. YouthWorks operates attendant care sites in Burley and Cass counties.
Youth ages 7 to 17 who have been charged with an unruly offense such as minor possession, ungovernable behavior, or running away should be brought to an attendant care site rather than a secure juvenile detention facility. Our attendant care sites are not secure, which means we keep the door unlocked, but the constant supervision by an adult reduces the likelihood of. When a juvenile person arrives, we do a thorough intake, which involves a drug and alcohol screening, as well as a mental health screening. Usually within 24 hours or less, the youth is released to a parent or other responsible adult at the direction of the juvenile court. At times, the youth may await court.
Using attendant care can also benefit law enforcement in a number of ways.
Attendant care allows our officers to get back on the street in those cases where parents cannot be located, and the non-secure setting can have an impact on the youth's behavior. For those youths who are not dangerous to themselves or the community, the use of a non-jail-like setting can have a calming effect. Juveniles are generally easier to handle in this setting and less likely to attempt to harm themselves. A full police report on the incident does still need to be provided to the juvenile court.
Many people believe that pre-trial or pre-adjudication supervision is a punishment, but that is a common misconception. Terry Trinkley is the juvenile court director for the Southeast and East Central Court Districts.
Federal and state laws, as well as the Constitution, are quite clear. Anyone, and especially youth, can be detained only for their own protection or the necessary protection of the community and to ensure future court appearances. We must treat offending juveniles, especially juveniles with status offenses, in the least restrictive way possible.
Putting low-risk offenders in secure facilities can have inadvertent negative outcomes. Studies show that a prior detention stay is a greater predictor of recidivism than carrying a weapon or belonging to a gang. Grouping low-level offenders with more sophisticated delinquent youth in detention facilities can actually increase antisocial behavior and their affiliation with antisocial peers. Detained youth are more likely to be referred to court, see their cases progress through the system to adjudication and disposition, have a formal disposition filed against them, and receive a more serious disposition. Many young people, in fact, engage in delinquent behavior, but will naturally grow out of it. And detention can slow down this natural process by disrupting their engagement with families, schools, and work. Young people with behavioral health problems get worse in detention because it can lead to depression and thoughts of suicide. A detention decision matrix is a reference for the proper handling of juveniles.
When law enforcement picks up a non-offender, a youth that is deprived or neglected, the preferred option of supervision is shelter care. For status offenders, those cited with runaway or minor in possession, the best option is attendant care. However, the law does allow them to be placed in juvenile detention for up to 24 hours if a non-secure supervision site is not available. Adult jail is prohibited for status offenders. For delinquent offenses, things like theft, vandalism, or assault, there can be some gray area. If the youth can safely be held non-securely, the best option is attendant care. If there is a safety issue, then the preferred option is juvenile detention. Adult jail is allowed for delinquent offenders for up to 24 hours in rural areas where no other options are available. But the youth must be sight and sound separated from adult offenders.
For more information about attendant care, contact the North Dakota Association of Counties at 701-328-7300.
So I passed out a little packet, before we started here today. The front page just kind of has the numbers, they speak for themselves. If you look at, the revenue from 2022, before we had shelter care or tenant care, it was 139,000 roughly. To 2023, it was 452,000, went up almost 70%, just including those programs. And then if you look at our numbers so far this year, halfway through, it's about almost 50% exactly of what our numbers were last year. The second page is the screening tool that they use. So law enforcement uses this tool to find out where they should place the juvenile. Generally, if they have a score of 13 or higher, they will be placed in detention, but they can still be placed in attendant care if there's not a risk. They can also be, score 2 and be overrode into detention if they feel there's a safety risk for that kid. And then the last 2 pages are just numbers across the state as far as how many delinquent youth there were in 2023, how many CHIPS cases, so children in need of protection, and how many CHINS cases, so that would be like attendant care, children in need of services. So, any questions about the numbers at all?
You said that they could be moved into different places. Who is making that decision? Is the police officer or is the person in the shelters?
Law enforcement generally will, if they don't have a whole lot of information, but let's say we've had the kids several times and they aren't gonna override them into detention, but we know they're a flight risk, or then we may say, it'd be more beneficial for them to be in detention.
Thank you.
Comments, questions? And anything else you need to go? Okay. Okay. So we need to start talking about the hires.
Yep, positions, depth and bullets, they need to know, that's what I know.
We've got thoughts.
Mr. Ford. What was the turnover date of the correctional center, the new one? To the county he said, I thought he said it was supposed to be August, wasn't it?
Well, they said, excuse me for interrupting, April 25th
Yeah,
was
toward
the
the end.
tentative date.
Yeah.
But they have until August,
Right,
and they were, it wasn't like a yes, we're gonna be done, it was like, well, if things continue to go the way they are, we could until August.
the
So-
city has to issue occupancy.
Right, right. So that was the question that I been,
And we can decide
right,
when we wanna make that happen,
right.
whether it's ready or not, so.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I had asked Debbie to make some changes to the months, because I mean, 10 months is. I hope, it's open and we're ready to go, but I really don't think that we're going to need it for 10 months.
Now, Brad Burkholder told me it's 2 months to train,
Right,
but you can't train them all at one time.
right, but you could do
Yeah.
like two chunks of. Groupings, if
Right.
I understand that's how
Yeah.
they go in a class and do it together, because. If you have that many people come in at once anyway, and they're all new. That seems like an excessive amount of people that
It
are
is,
new,
to
maybe
be
do it
trained.
2 at a time and. Utilizing the people that they have now and. Having them work together and then do it in phases.
Yeah, he doesn't have enough full-time people right now to train
Right.
all 10 at
Right,
once.
so I don't think it'd be good to hire all those people at once anyway. So,
Well, it's not gonna be magically full either.
No,
When
right.
they toss us the keys, it's not like all of a sudden we're gonna get a
Brad just needed a time where he could get a hold of the US Marshals and start generating income coming in from the federal government, so. I don't know when that realistic time would be. But
well, realistically, we don't know, it could be August.
it could be, yeah.
So we could say September 1st, I mean, really, would be September is probably the time that we could, so. Call it 6 months, so that's, right, January, March, April, May, June. July, August, yeah, 6 months
So 10,
instead of 10 months, and that saves us. If you wanna do the numbers, Debbie, I guess that would be great.
Oh, I took it from. What's not that? Yep. Close. So it was at 961. $577. The addiction officer is a position that we already have in the 2024 budget, so it's really a full-time. All of 2025, the quarter position, 75% is paid with the opiate fund that you approved. So 45.95 mils in the general fund.
Already staffed right now. An additional 10 are gonna be any easier to find, I almost feel like we'd be better off. Focusing on the employees that we currently have and lowering that number of that request, because it's understaffed now, it's not gonna just magically become fully staffed plus 10. And I mean, maybe part of the reason there's turnover is compensation, as we said, talk about COLAs and steps and et cetera, I mean. Keep in mind, these are stalwart employees that have been with the county for, who knows, I mean. Some probably over 30 years,
I think in our prior discussions, it seemed like we all want to get to that goal of some increased compensation. And if we can figure out things like this where realistically, we don't need to hire jail personnel until 2 months before September 1st. That's a big deal. You might be able to use that.
Yeah.
And you guys were at those meetings, is that realistic? We should be looking for September 1st opening?
So, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Hagan is absolutely correct. Contractually, there is a deadline, August. I'd say best case scenario, if nothing goes wrong in construction schedule, which something always happens. May 1st, you're looking at getting the keys. But that's assuming everything stays on schedule, that assumes procurement schedules stay the same, that assumes materials arrive on time. That assumes there aren't any washouts between now and then. So contractually, September 1, we would have to have the keys anyway, sir. But to Commissioner Hagan's point, yeah, then you need time to recruit. You need time to interview, hire, train. So it doesn't mean that that pod gets opened, September 1st. And if Mr. Burkholder's online as well, yeah, he can probably speak to it.
My question for Ms. Nelson is if we assume that we're not going to be hiring any of the correctional officers until summer or in August or September 1st, opening at the earliest. What if things do go faster? What would that do to us as far as a budget amendment to make something work, or how would that happen?
Right. And how much would that cost? And, for what period of time? I'd like to be conservative and say, if there's a chance that you're gonna open in May, you better budget now for that. Or don't open in May.
Well, that's the thing that's on our side, is we don't have to, we could give ourselves a 60-day cushion to say. It's open, but we're going to allow hiring, getting these people trained, maybe do it in 2 different phases, so it's not everybody's onboarding at the same time. And now we have this new facility for them to just go into.
Yeah, so it's sit empty very long, but that's.
So the other thing that's gonna take place when they get done with the new facilities over there, then they're gonna remodel where the administrative offices were in the old jail for the health. So that will be going on, so administration will move into the new part, but not necessarily have clientele right there, so.
We could slow roll the opening too.
So should we plan on not worrying about May 1st and go instead, worry about July 1st or even August 1st to start hiring these folks, probably July 1st?
I would feel comfortable doing 6 months, just because if we do have May 1st, again, there's a 60-day time that we can give ourselves a cushion. I guess, and I don't know, like, what anybody else's opinions are, but.
I think we can.
Debbie,
Yeah,
I do have a question. When looking at like halftime of those new employees, what will we be possibly sitting at with cash carry forward in July of 20?
I didn't hear all of your question.
When we're looking at potentially starting to hire staff for that new pod at the jail, what would we be looking at potentially with cash carry forward in July of 2025?
Well, it all depends on what they decide today with its preliminary budget. What are you going to do with your capital improvements, and what are you gonna do for the sheriff's relocation, and how much cash are you going to use for those items? So, we have, budgeted using $12 million in this year's budget. Will we probably be somewhere around that mark in July 2025? 10, 12 million, maybe?
So there could potentially be some cash available in July of 2025 when corrections starts hiring personnel.
Possibly. But
Okay,
I would rather budget conservatively and then make sure that we have it covered for what we anticipate opening.
The thing is, he's not gonna be able to hire 10 people right away. He might be able to hire half.
Right.
Get them trained, and then be doing the interview process on another 5.
Right.
So
But
there could be
I
a split.
prefer to budget worst case scenario. What if the
Yeah.
the best people came in? They already were trained, they came from someplace.
To me, this is the most easy place to look at the budget and find some potential savings because of all the unknowns.
Right.
We don't know when the building's gonna be done. We don't know when it's done, if it's actually gonna be done, if they have to come in and do warranty work. you know, we don't know what the change orders of that. Increase the length of the project. We don't know if he's gonna be able to hire the staff, and we don't know if it'll be filled with prisoners. I mean, that's 5 pretty glaring things.
Well,
To drop $1 billion on 10 jailers for 8 months a year, I mean, to me, this is an easy one.
right. What I would add on to that is that also talking to the marshals about bringing people in. You talk, oh, we're gonna have it ready in July, by the way, actually, it's gonna be, you know, we wanna rebuild that relationship from what I understand. I don't know if it's broken or not, but, you know, we wanna give them a date that's solid rather than, we might not, we're not really sure. So I would feel more comfortable with saying, yes, guaranteed by the state, we will have beds available, rather than.
We can't guarantee that, but we can't stop, I mean, we don't.
Right, no, I-
Can't qualified applicants, you know.
Sounds like the only guarantee we could give for that would be September first,
Right,
but if it's done earlier,
right.
say, oh, guess what, we're open.
If it's done earlier, that's great, that's wonderful, and we can hire the staff, get them trained. Integrate them with the people that are already there and. Open it up, but. Without knowing, save a lot of money, if you can.
Do we need motions, or we just gonna, discuss these things until we get to the end of the
Would be
day?
great, and then this is what I'll bring on the 6th of August. Back for final approval of the preliminary budget, so if you guys are in agreement. With 10 officers for 6 months,
I think we're probably in agreement and a consensus basis for that issue. Then we've got other people that are being requested. At the correctional center. Does that apply to all the other folks who,
what we've got the administrative assistants, yes.
was that the only extra one?
Yep,
Okay. We got that, and then we've got
the
sheriff
sheriff
positions, an HR position,
and IT.
IT. And, you go down the list, different choices for COLA and staff. So, what are your thoughts on combining some of these issues?
Well, I'm still at the correctional center, but I think, I don't think correctional center administrative assistant is necessary right now. Addiction officer at quarter time,
That one you've already approved,
okay.
2024,
okay.
so.
The custodian, we need that for sure.
Well, does there have to be 10, you know, does there have to be 10 of them? I mean, I don't know, I don't run jail, but it. Just,
Well, he's got some,
it's a tough drive.
I talked to him this morning, he's talking to corrections in Bismarck. About one of his pods, if he can get by with two deputies in there, or 2 correctional officers rather than 3. So. But he doesn't have that information yet, so. He's working on it though.
So if that's the case, he finds out before the final budget is approved, he can always go down, he can't go up, he can go down.
Would be fair.
So as far as the IT position, I'd like to either have Mr. Ford or Evelyn come up and talk about extra duties or responsibilities that may come up in the future.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ross, Commissioners, so I had a discussion with Lane Magnuson, the county planner. And I've had the discussion with Evelyn, and I won't speak for her, but soon, the way that the GIS mapping and software, as we see it now, will be changing, it's gonna be evolving. In visiting with Lane, essentially, it's a completely new skill set. One that he hasn't had to deal with before. Some of this evolution, you're seeing it across the board, you're seeing other entities, municipalities start to convert that into IT. Because it's more software package, IT heavy. And so with Evelyn asking for an additional staff member. I did visit with Lane and then I did visit with Evelyn as well about would Evelyn be open to taking that on? If the commission were to grant her that extra person, and she had indicated.
Yeah.
That she would be, but she would need the extra staff person. But this is, in talking, I think I spoke with a few of you as well offline, you're seeing this transition in other areas as well, because it is very technology driven and heavy.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I don't know, the GIS is that for my department?
It's the parcel updating.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's only scratching the surface of what's available in GIS. We've only been doing that. If IT took it over, we would hope to do it more.
I was wondering too, we had a discussion about hiring, contracting with the city to help us, because it isn't a huge,
Correct, but
it doesn't happen very
the
often.
city did say they didn't have the resources. They went down to a one-person department instead of two for that. They didn't have it, but I did check contracting out to another company, and it was $10,000 to $15,000 for the year for what we're doing, nothing additional. We expect we could do additional or get it better over the years.
I'm in favor of additional, I'm in favor of an additional 19%.
Yeah, that would seem to fit. What's happening in that area.
Can you,
Question.
Debbie, can you do the Martins so we can all see it, but through under the.
And
Department,
the IT.
yeah, and I see what an IT, a sheriff's deputy,
One,
yep. And then a 3, the step, and a 2% COLA, and see what that comes out to.
so it's a mill increase of approximately 1.61 mils. Or $2.6 million for last year.
We would have the opportunity to give the taxpayer back a little bit in our additional levies if we were to go ahead. And eliminate our relationship with the historical society.
We're back on that
Here
one.
we are again.
I'm just looking up to the taxpayer. If we can see our sheriff's department getting built on top of that building right now for no particular reason.
And sorry, forgot about that.
Yeah, you're supposed to close those.
Well, sorry about that.
Gives me anxiety.
So $100,000 residential value, you pay an additional $7.23 to the county. With that, those items we selected. Oh, wait, no.
So the
I-
COLA,
Hold on, you've got the 2.2
I put
down
that
here,
in there,
so that will be a lot
So this-
different.
did
You
you
forgot to delete something.
Did they
It's a-
say the
it's a
2%
market.
COLA too?
Yes, what?
Did they say the 2% COLA too?
Yes, a
Well,
3%
that's gonna-
step and a
we're
COLA,
gonna-
but see, I still have the 2.22 mils
Oh.
in there for the capital construction levy, and now I've taken that out, so it's a minus 0.61 mils over last year.
But I'm just saying, if we deal with the COLA, we're gonna have compression issues in our step system, right?
Pardon me?
We're gonna
Not
have
if you
compression
do both.
issues in our step system if we go with a COLA.
But
No,
Oh,
step
you
is,
can do
the
That was the two.
step and COLA,
well, that's why I do like a hybrid thing, so then we alleviate that.
Step at 2%.
Yeah,
yes,
that's just my suggestion, just to see what it came out to, and I'm.
So with the things we have here. That would be not a new position for HR
One
and
deputy,
then 1 deputy less. And 2% COLA and the step. If we use the cash for the things we've discussed, then we don't raise the mill levy at all. In fact,
no,
it's slightly
no,
less.
yeah.
All for that.
yeah, I'd love to see a negative for folks. I mean, obviously with the valuations, it's different, but yeah.
Yeah, they ain't gonna see it that way.
No, I know,
Yeah,
that's why I
city
had to
did the same
caveat
thing.
that.
City did the same thing,
But it's still. It's an improvement,
did raise their mill levy, but that price up.
right, that's your first year homestead, it's still.
Any other thing kind of see or change?
What?
Anything else you wanna see or change or?
Well, I'm just thinking now, where does, this grant, the potential, share of a grant hanging overhead, where does that fit into our capital improvement budget?
Or are you talking about the
Well,
request for pricing, then we would have to add to our capital improvements budget. And actually, it's 1.561 if we do only 300,000. So,
Is that worth it? To put
Yeah, sure it is.
put different light bulbs in the buildings?
What would it cost, energy savings cost, I mean, would it?
Well, over 10 years, we might have a technology where they are all running on their own.
Maybe, well, AI.
I don't know, I converted a bill
And
one
you know,
time,
here's
it
the
didn't
thing.
be a dang thing.
with capital improvement, you're spending every last penny of it before the year has started. There was always things that happened during the year. That I need this, so I need this, and this broke down, and now we have no money because we spent it on all the projects.
Right.
So, and with your approval of this budget, doesn't mean you approved anything other than those highlighted ones. And those are the only ones that you have approved for sure. All you're approving is the dollar amount that's in the capital improvements budget.
That's true.
Yeah.
It shifted if we have to.
Yeah.
From one to the next.
You could. And if there's things that could wait on that. For half the year till June, see how the year unfolds.
So the thing on that one grant sheet reference is you've got to be able to show that the savings is there over the course of the decade. I can tell you, we did one about 4 years ago, I'm not gonna be able to illustrate a savings of that amount of money in that period of time.
So,
It's, I mean, just, I'm not seeing it, and you know, we went to all LED and. Looks nice and it's pretty and everything, but it would just be a big waste of money and time. We filled up just gads of dumpsters full of these things for, you know, fill the landfill.
so just the court facilities and historic preservation fund, instead of the energy conservation grant?
What, just the court?
Well, what the historical preservation, that could be for the grant thing, could it not? Right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's something we need to do anyway.
Yeah, that's.
I know your feelings about it,
That's
but we still gotta come up with the money to
He
pay.
wants to tear everything down, so this story's like. It's called old Bob. Lincoln was not shot in those grandstands.
Vintage. Vintage.
Say, Mr. Chair,
Good, but
I got a question for Mr. Burkholder. Brett, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Is there any chance that, you know, we talked about 6 months. But is there any possibility we could go with 8 instead of 10 officers?
It's, there's 168 hours in a week per post. That's 4 FTE plus 8 hours. Then you have vacation and sick leave and everything. So it takes 5 FTE for one body in one post. When you have 72 potential inmates in there, you would not staff that with one individual. You would have to have 2. It's over 60. The other thing is Pod 4 is a dormitory type of housing unit where you cannot lock inmates down. When the officers go in there to check and do their well-being checks, there would always be a potential that they could be jumped or accosted by inmates. And if you have one person in there, you have 0 backup. So that would be my concern. And that's where I'm going to be talking with the Department of Corrections to see how similar this would be to what's called direct supervision versus indirect, where you actually have an officer stationed within a housing unit. Because that is the other way of operations, to have one large housing unit with an officer stationed in it. 8, it would be pushing things. My concern with that is transports, medical, and all the other things that are going to happen where I don't have full staffing.
Okay, it was just a question.
Yeah, excellent question.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
yes,
quite a quick question.
Commissioner, and to just, convolute the capital improvements discussion more. Commissioner Ross, did you want to mention the monitor control stations and?
Well, you know more about it than what I do, but, go ahead, because you've got an alternative too, maybe.
Well, that alternative won't work after I visited with the finance and tax director.
Okay.
So. On the correctional center expansion, youth assessment center build. The initial planning had one monitor control station. Through construction, it was determined that wouldn't work. They were gonna have to have two. It's a significant change order, cost about $190,000. And something that the owner contingency isn't able to absorb. And so I've asked construction engineers to carry that negative in that bucket for now. But one of the ideas was in February, when the commission meets to set the capital improvement budget, to fund that change through the capital improvements. Since that's why I'm mentioning it now, is Ms. Nelson mentions it's all spent, and that wasn't a plan in February. Or we can find other means somehow, but
Or they're not able to do all the grants.
for Robin, is that the monitor control stations has to be two, is that required, or could it go with the one for now and then change later on or in a future budget cycle?
I believe it has to be separate with juvenile and adults.
If we just did, say, the historical fund, preservation fund. How much would that? How many dollars would we have to put toward that? Yeah, you said it was a 50% match, but.
There's only 150,000 available statewide. So
Okay,
we need about
I didn't write that down,
25 bucks out of
so
it.
So there is work that's gonna have to be done to that grandstand. It's supposed to be done annually, but I don't believe it has been.
So get something from with.
Yeah,
for the-
I mean, something better than nothing,
Oh,
and that's gonna
absolutely.
have to be done regardless, so.
Yeah.
I feel like
That seems to be something you can absorb more easily.
Yeah.
I think.
You can also increase your budget here. And additional capital improvement dollars.
I think there's a maximum amount a county can receive on that historical preservation grants. I remember looking at it for the dome, and we were down at the this project that already started. Is that right? It's like a $20,000 max.
I wasn't seeing it on the main page, but I can dig in more to be sure, but I know that the likelihood of getting approved for anything more than that would be extremely slim.
Let's say you had $200,000 in capital improvement dollars, in addition to the 1.5 million, another 200,000 that you just discussed. Now it's getting just much different life. That's very close to work.
Ms. Nelson. This is just thinking out loud, if they put that extra 200,000 in for the monitor. Commissioner Ross, perhaps between now and August 6th. For the prelim budget, we visit with construction engineers, they did offer another option. But I don't want to discuss it yet. I could discuss it on the 6th, but it would be a commission decision to go with that option.
Yeah.
And you can also do it that third Tuesday in September take out.
Right,
You have all the way till then
okay,
to take it
Yeah,
out.
so we could include that for now,
right,
with the idea that it'd be nice to take it off if we can.
let's do that, and then I'll chat with Caleb.
Yeah.
On that other, okay.
I just do not have a bill levy increase.
Commissioners, going back to that question, I looked it up quickly. It appears up to and including $50,000.
50,000.
Or it would be 25. Or no, it's it would be paid 15,000.
And that would be a very competitive, but circle the
About 50% that.
50% match and up to $50,000.
This is up to 150,
Yes,
and you think Grand Forks County is gonna get 100,000 of the 150 this year?
or it would be 50,000 of the 150.
Well, 50.
Yeah.
And then our match is 25.
25,000.
50. And this is a 50.
Oh, 50.
The court improvement is 25, but the historic preservation, which would be grandstands, is 50/50.
Okay.
Those grandstands were actually commissioned by, it was either President Woodrow Wilson or President Franklin Roosevelt. So actually, you have a good case in your application if you just mention that.
That's like Mike Hughes on Mark.
Yeah, well, he wasn't shot in the field there, so it's still just old.
I mean, what's the harm of going for it? We gotta fix it, you know, I'm gonna get some free money out of the deal. If we can get it.
Yeah.
Does anyone have, their thoughts organized enough to make a motion to approve a preliminary budget, knowing that we can reduce it? Without
And
bringing
I
it
don't
up
know
to the
that you
six.
have to make a motion.
What?
We have to
I
do it
will
at the
just-
commission
Oh,
meeting.
At the commission meeting on
And
Tuesday.
I will put in the things that we were discussed today.
And then,
Change your mind
yeah, okay,
and make your motion on the 6th.
okay.
And that's,
But then once you do, it can't be any greater than that.
and that's with no mill levy increase, right?
What was that?
That's
Well-
with no mill levy increase.
Well, if you put $200,000 additional for the capital improvement dollars, there's a slight mill of like 0.05.
Half a mil?
Okay, we'll get it, I mean. Will we change it so it's exactly equal? Like that. I mean,
Cause that's only if we.
but that's an estimate anyway, I mean, it's not,
Yeah, that's-
maybe it's gonna be 0.04 at the end.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be 0.06 at the end, you know, I can't,
Well,
it's just an estimate.
so. So if we find an alternative for that 185,000. For that station and correction,
There's an alternative.
yeah,
I just need to rehash it with construction engineers before I'm comfortable speaking about it.
and then you can tell Debbie, and then maybe we'll be even.
Well, this, for $100,000 on a residential property is 24 cents more. Than they paid down last year on every $100,000.
Still a headline.
All right, any other directions for finance and tax that you can think of? Any more questions about how we should approach it?
I think you guys just give me a week with it, I'll redline and everything, and then just have you blindly vote on it, trust me. So good,
Write that down.
I'll make that the form of motion.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't need a motion today, I guess, so
No,
we will know. Anything else that we need to discuss?
oh, I don't think
Commissioner
so.
Beach, any other thoughts?
Well, the only thing that I'm thinking of is that Commissioner Ross did talk about if we gave a step increase that could create some problems with staffing amounts that they get, their salaries. And with us trying to balance this budget, I'm just wondering if we should check to see what a 3% COLA would be and not have a stepped increase, just to have a comparison.
If we don't have a step, isn't that what makes the conversion, right?
Like the only difference is gonna be those are key.
Yeah, what creates the compression?
This increase affects a number of people, doesn't it? Just-
Right, the step increase will affect 30+ people. If you're just looking at the COLA. I mean, the best case scenario would be to be able to do a step and some form of a COLA.
I agree.
I think we have,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because there's 30 people that are maxed out, right?
Yeah,
They're not in the, they're. in the
over
top
30,
percent.
they're at step 13. There's several.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the compression comes from a couple of different ways, and you can't say that giving a step or not giving a step will guarantee compression. Same thing with COLA and not a COLA. It becomes more problematic when you say people with this tenure get a step, but if they're at that tenure, they don't get a step. Now we're shoving them closer.
Yeah.
So, and you still have the issue, if you don't do some form of a COLA, it may lead to more new hires who don't have the experience and the education, having to come in at a higher step, which causes issues because we can't get them in the door at our regular. So that's why if you could do something, even if it's a lesser COLA than what, you know, we suggested before, so if you did something more at a 2% COLA and a step, that's probably the best way to take care of the
So
people we currently have.
So some people will get 5%,
2% COLA and after.
Yes,
and some will get 2%.
2%,
The
and that's
30 that
not,
are maxed out.
and that's not any different than any other year.
Yeah.
Anytime we've done a COLA, anybody who's maxed out only gets the COLA. Once they hit step 13.
Mr. Chair, I think I mentioned this at a previous meeting, but I think maybe once the dust settles on this budget season, if we our schedule gets a little cleaner, we may want to look at maybe a hybrid model, you know, so that there isn't a top out like that for the folks that have put in the most years. Because future commissions may not be able to afford a step and a COLA, and I think there's gotta be an algorithm, a formula of some sort that can ensure that our most dedicated staff that have been here the longest, the stalwarts, so to speak, don't just have to sit and wait on a COLA in case, and their steps are maxed out. To me, that seems like an illogical way of doing things. There's got to be a finer way to do it.
Yeah. Now let's just look, let's see what we can do with that idea. All right, so. Hearing nothing else, are we ready to adjourn?
Commissioner Hagan can take care of that for you.
I'll second.
Did you make a motion in time?
He's just getting in front of himself.
Okay, there's a motion in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Bye.
Show there.